Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having an awesome week out there so far. We got a good bit to talk about in this morning's video. And the first thing we'll cover, of course, is current conditions, the latest outlooks, watches, warnings, advisories, things like that. And then we'll break down the country section by section. We'll spend some extra time on the southeast. I know I got a lot of people tuning in from that area. I think we could have some nasty thunderstorms for later on this afternoon to this evening. You know, it's been very hot across the southeast and a good chunk of the eastern U.S., but we haven't had much rain from it. You know, normally when it gets really hot in the afternoon, we'll get some crazy thunderstorms sometime, those summer thunderstorms, but lately we haven't got it. Now, we've had some pop-up storms. For example, here in my neck of the woods in the Midlands of South Carolina, we had a pop-up storm yesterday that actually popped off one bolt of lightning that impacted 18 people. So 18 people were struck by one bolt of lightning. Now, nobody died, just some injuries. So we're very thankful for that. But this happened right up the road from me, basically, in our local lake we call Lake Murray. And they have a park where, you know, the public can swim at in the lake, and definitely unfortunate, but fortunately nobody was killed from it. So you just never know when one's going to pop up right on top of you. But for today, we're going to just have widespread thunderstorms across the southeast. So we're going to speak heavy on that. We'll talk about a couple other areas also, like the Midwest. You guys can continue just to get rounds of showers and storms. Some that could hit severe limits. So we'll zoom into that area also. And then we'll just speak a little bit on the pattern throughout the next several days, but not going to speak a whole lot on that and get very detailed on it. There's enough to talk about, you know, right out ahead of us. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. And we'll have a Bible devotion right at the end of the video if you're interested in staying around for that. So let's get rocking and rolling. So this is the latest current conditions. We do have a lot of rain across areas of the Midwest and the central and northern plains. We actually have a pretty large flash flood warning ongoing right now across portions of Iowa. A little bit of rain moving across areas of lower Michigan. But a big area of rain just across, like I said, areas of the Dakotas and the plains, getting into the upper Midwest. We continue to have a moist flow across New Mexico, getting into Colorado. This has been pretty much the same pattern we've seen over the last few days, and it will continue over the next few days at least. But as you can tell, most of the flow is kind of rounding up through here, and this is pretty much leaving the southern tier of the country pretty quiet. But some upper energy is going to work in tandem. Basically upper energy around this ridge will work in tandem with a weak upper low closer off the coast of Florida, and the flow, upper energy wise, will support widespread showers and storms across the southeast for later on today. So that'll be a heavy topic in this video. Elsewhere, it's a pretty quiet. It's a very uncomfortable morning temperature wise across a good chunk of the south this morning. Heck, I'm looking at my little weather station display right now, and I think it only dropped to 77 degrees. But some areas have not even been able to get below 80 degrees across the eastern U.S., so it's pretty miserable out there. But heat advisories are up in all these counties and, you know, parishes for Louisiana. In the orange, these are heat advisories. We got excessive heat warnings in this purple pinkish color right here. There's probably some extreme heat warnings also, but they're not showing up on this screen. But I mean, regardless, if you live in these purple or orange counties, I mean, it's just going to get blistering hot today. Flood watches remain here across New Mexico and western Texas, with just a continuous feed of moisture into these areas. So a quick update on the tropics. We did take a name, Andrea. A very short-lived tropical system. Now it's post-tropical, but not expected to impact anybody. But it did take a name, and so the next name I believe is Barry. I think. It's sad. I actually looked at this right before I jumped on here. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not going to pretend that I know every single name out of the hurricane list of names. But yes, Barry is the next name. So I had to look that up real quick. But the latest from the Storm Prediction Center as far as their outlook, we have a slight risk up here across areas of the plains and Midwest. and a larger one across the southeast. And we do have a marginal risk that's connecting these two higher severe weather threat areas. So I will zoom into this area, and guys, I'm going to cover this when we break down the southeast. So if you're screaming at me wondering, well, why aren't you going to talk about this? I got you covered in the southeast timestamp here. But just a closer look at this slight risk here across areas of Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather in these regions. Tornado threat is at a 2%. So 2% risk. It's not sub 2, so there is enough flow out there to support some shear that could get a tornado going out of some of these storms for today. The wind threat is at a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. Sioux City, right in the middle of this, Sioux Falls, over to Waterloo, and stops just shy, just north of Omaha. So the hail threats, not much of one today, surprisingly. I mean, they don't even have a 5% risk up for these areas that have a slight risk today, which is a bit surprising, but this is what we're working with. So marginal risk does stretch across the high plains, all the way across areas of Indiana, Illinois, Ohio Valley, PA, all the way into the mid-Atlantic. So we will spend a little bit of time on this area. Also, the excessive rainfall outlook, there is a couple areas in the green that has at least a 5% risk of flash flooding, and we could get that today in some of these areas. I want to definitely watch the southeast. Not a whole lot of rain has fell over this area over the last several days. So if you get an inch of rain in 15 minutes or something, and with the air mass super saturated like it is, it could definitely cause flash flooding. But these two yellow areas, this is where we have a 15% risk of flash flooding occurring within 25 miles of any given location. And once again, it's for portions of Texas, good chunk of New Mexico, and some of these same areas up here in the mid to upper Midwest. So we continue to move forward here. Let's break down the southeast. So a zoomed in look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook. We have a slight risk up in the yellow, level 2 out of 5. The dark green is a level 1 out of 5. The light green is a general risk of thunderstorms. So good chunk of the Carolinas, good chunk of Georgia, southeast Alabama, and the panhandle of Florida is running that slight risk. Places like Charlotte, Columbia, Raleigh, Winston-Salem, Hickory, Asheville, Augusta, the Greenville-Spartanburg area. I think I already said Augusta. Atlanta, Macon, down the Dothan, Savannah, Valdosta, Tallahassee, all the panhandle of Florida. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. And really what's driving this today is the wind threat. There is a risk of hail, and of course there is an outside risk of a tornado, but the wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location in the yellow area, which is the entire slight risk area. Guys, not only are we going to have a damaging wind threat, we can have a damaging wind threat due to micro or downburst, which is really a very isolated, especially a micro. Downburst a little bit larger, but the same thing. It could be just an isolated area of big time winds. Like I'm talking about hurricane force winds, 90 to 100 mile per hour winds. It's kind of one of those situations, and I think almost all of us have experienced it in the South in the summer, where it looks like just a normal run-of-the-mill thunderstorm, and all of a sudden things just go insane. It's happened to me multiple times. It's happened to me in my car. It just looks like you're getting hit by a mini tornado. And some people think it is a tornado, and then of course, if it causes damage, the National Weather Service, the survey team will go out there and survey the damage and confirm that the disbursement of winds supports a microburst or downburst and not a tornado. But it will make you think that it is a tornado, and the ingredients sounding wise in the atmosphere supports that for today. And you'll know it if you're getting hit by one, because things will literally just go from just a regular old thunderstorm to just absolutely insane in seconds. But a broad look at the southeast today, starting around lunchtime. Just not a whole lot going on. What I would say for today is we're going to have some intense heating. Of course, it's gotten very hot very fast across the eastern U.S. throughout the morning, early afternoon hours this entire week. That has been the general theme. It'll do it even quicker today. And I mean, I think it'll be 100 degrees for certain areas of the Carolinas by lunchtime today. It just, the heat will pop off fast. It'll be awful heat before maybe some storms can cool some things down. So, this is lunchtime, not a whole lot going on, but as we move forward here, you can see just scattered showers and storms across Virginia down to the Carolinas, even up into West Virginia, Kentucky. But eventually these could organize, kind of pivot north to south and almost go northeast to southwest through Georgia. And eventually I think the panhandle of Florida could get a nasty line of storms later tonight. But this is just kind of a broad look. And I think eventually this area of storms will probably start in like Virginia, North Carolina. And by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, they could be all the way in the northern Gulf off the coast of the panhandle, Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi. I really think that'll be the theme for today. So a closer look, of course, we will take here. Virginia, North Carolina shows other states also, but starting off around 3 p.m., you notice not a whole lot going on. 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Now the radar, the HRRR model is not going to obviously demonstrate perfection to us, but it's going to do the best it can. And what I'll watch for is right off the foothills of Virginia, North Carolina, some intense thunderstorms will form. We'll get pop-up activity elsewhere. And as soon as these storms start popping off, they will pop off what we call outflow boundaries, rain-cooled air that gets dispersed away from these storms. And that outflow boundary, that rain-cooled air, cool air will hit all the warm air surrounding that. And this will initiate more storms. Cool air against hot air really gets the atmosphere going. And that's what will happen today. This also leads to those down or microbursts. And as we continue to move forward here, we get to about 8 p.m. I would watch for the clustering of some storms, maybe in North Carolina, maybe not so much in Virginia, more so just sort of areas of storms. But the clustering of storms is possible down to the Piedmont, the Carolinas. And, we get into 9 p.m. Any of these storms, could be very intense, definitely severe. And then 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., still got some showers drifting around. And I know a lot of people are probably going to ask, I know I'm going to get it on social media, and I don't blame you. People want to know when it's going to storm, but, what's the timing of this today, Mitch? Well, we don't have a clue. That's why you don't get so hyper-focused on that hourly forecast, folks. You got to keep your eye on the sky, download a reliable radar. And, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, here in my neck of the woods, Lake Murray, which is right here, 18 people got struck by one bolt of lightning. And, there was a little bit of a conversation on, if the people had enough warning. And they probably did, but, I would actually not take sides necessarily with one or the other. But, there's always a thing where the public get the information fast enough. Well, they got it about as fast as they could. And what happened, basically a storm popped up, fired off a kind of an outflow boundary. Then it popped up another storm like within minutes right off this lake, and it fired off a bolt. There was probably 25, 30 minutes to really, do something about it, get out the water, get indoors. But it happened so fast. It was a day where there was only a 10 to 15% chance of storms. And, it happened very quickly. So, sometimes you got to say, okay, I get it, but that's why you just got to take the weather serious. You got to always have a reliable radar. Keep your eye on the sky. Visibly look. Don't just look at your phone and, don't look up in the sky where the storms are happening. If you see a big towering cumulus cloud, big mushroom looking cloud off in the distance, and it looks really dark, there's a chance, if it's in the summer, it's probably a thunderstorm. And if you hear a rumble of thunder, you got lightning. So enough of all that. But getting into about 2, 3, 4 o'clock, not a whole lot going on, but 5, 6 o'clock shows some intense thunderstorms firing up in northern South Carolina. And then they sneak into the Midlands, and these will probably be driven off outflow boundaries, enough flow to get these storms moving one way or the other. But at first, I think they'll be outflow boundary driven, but you continue to move into 9, 10 p.m. And I know it doesn't show any storms on Columbia, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be any. This is 10 p.m. Intense thunderstorms, Greenville down to Augusta. These storms could very well be right on top of Columbia. Shows them on Florence. We get into 11, 12 o'clock. Tonight, I mean, this isn't 12 o'clock midday. This is midnight tonight. Could have a light show across areas of eastern Georgia and South Carolina. Just widespread strong to severe thunderstorms. 1, 2 a.m. Look at all these storms down here in southeast Georgia, the low country of South Carolina. I mean, these storms are still just raging on. So we get into 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Storms are sinking south. So, if you go to sleep and ain't nothing going on, say in Georgia, and there's a possibility you're going to wake up in the middle of the night to some big-time thunderstorms well after midnight. Statesboro down the Valdosta, Savannah, the Georgia coastline, low country of South Carolina. And then we're going to get to around this time tomorrow, and most of the action should be heading down into the panhandle of Florida. But the timing of these storms, it looks like it's trending a little bit later. Once upon a time, I thought these storms would fire up a little bit early this afternoon, and they could. Listen, on the day when we have intense heating, I would almost guarantee that we're going to have storms that will fire up a little bit earlier than what models are indicating. But you see these storms, they're going to be quite intense. Now, we take a look at Florida. Let's start off around 5 p.m. We're already going to have pop-up, just run-of-the-mill Florida-type thunderstorms in the peninsula of Florida. You can see the storms dancing around and sort of drifting more so, east to west. So, heads up for Central Florida, Orlando, down to the west coast of Florida especially. But later on tonight, I mean, this is midnight, it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You see those intense thunderstorms up here in northern Florida, Tallahassee. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. Be on guard with this. Late tonight, you guys could be woken up by some nasty storms. And listen, I know this shows these storms hitting around 6 o'clock tomorrow morning in Tallahassee, but these could very well, I could see them moving in 6 hours earlier. So the timing of all of this has kind of been pushed back a little bit. But I do think we could wake up to an intense line of storms tomorrow morning, maybe across Florida, southern areas of Georgia and Alabama. So be aware of that. And then we take a look at Alabama and Mississippi, and I would really watch out for the southeastern areas of Alabama. But we could just have pop-up activity before that and just watch some thunderstorms down here in southeast Alabama. As we're getting really into later tonight, but it doesn't show a whole lot between now and the next 24 hours, honestly. I keep harping on the heat. When I tell you it's going to heat up fast, I mean, it's already been awful already here in the next few hours. It'll be well into the 90s, but it's going to heat up fast today. This is around lunchtime across areas of Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia. And I think a lot of areas, there'll be many areas already hitting the triple digits, already hitting 100 degrees. National Weather Service already going for around upper 90s in areas of, from Virginia down to South Carolina. So intense heat. The heat index already at lunchtime will most likely be closer to 105 to 110 degrees. So the atmosphere is going to get prime fast. And I mean, just, the high temperatures for today in this area, I really think these high temperatures from Augusta to Columbia up to Fayetteville to Raleigh-Durham all the way up to southeast Virginia, I think we'll hit our high temperatures around or just after lunchtime. It'll probably hit 100, 101, 102 degrees, and then storms will fire off and then cool everything down. So intense heat will fire up these storms, and this is kind of where the meat of the storms will get going later on today. So, moving into the northeast area, we get into this afternoon to this evening. This is late afternoon, dinner time. Thunderstorms will try to fire in PA, West Virginia. Virginia, we've already talked about that. And just a little bit of thunderstorm activity in Ohio. You see some thunderstorms in lower Michigan also. We could have a more organized area of storms sort of near Detroit, southeast areas of lower Michigan later on this evening. But any of these storms could hit severe limits, but not a super high-end severe weather threat or anything like that. Just heat, instability will get these storms going. But just a closer look at, say, PA, 2, 3, 4, 5 p.m. You see some storms sort of southeast of Pittsburgh, and we just got a little bit of flow out there at State College. Anybody in PA could get hit in surrounding states, but I've just kind of picked one state out here and showed it to you guys. But the south central U.S., two areas I'm watching. One's obviously New Mexico and Colorado. We're going to have widespread heavy rain and storms once again. Some of these storms could pack a punch, but I do want to say watch out for the coastal areas of Texas. A lot of thunderstorm activity sort of hanging around Corpus Christi up into Houston, everybody in between. A lot of heavy rain and storm activity could produce maybe a little bit of a flash flooding threat, but you see all the activity up through here. I don't think it'll be as widespread as, say, yesterday or the day before, but once again, energy will eject up into Nebraska and Kansas. But rainfall between now and, say, around 7 p.m. Friday, so we're extending this out a little bit. You can see the area of rain I'm talking about in southeast Texas. We could certainly get half an inch to an inch, maybe 2 inches of rain. Watch out specifically around the Houston, Galveston area. You guys could get a couple inches of rain between now and the next couple of days. So the north central U.S. waking up to that big plume of rain moving across areas here. This will continue. Just a broad look at things as usual. We get into this afternoon, some intense thunderstorms are possible for southern areas of Minnesota. Some thunderstorms moving into southwest areas of Wisconsin. A little bit of thunderstorm activity you see here in lower Michigan. Could have a cluster of storms. Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Flint, Lansing, into Detroit. Pop-up run-of-the-mill type stuff in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. We've already spoken on Ohio there. But you see more organized thunderstorm activity down here in Nebraska, developing into northern Iowa later this evening. This is 6, 7 o'clock. Some pop-up activity up here in the Dakotas. We'll have to watch for that too. So a lot of little clusters of storms out here. And we'll just go on and take a closer look starting west to east. And this is around 9 a.m. This morning. Not a whole lot going on. What action is ongoing will begin to move to the northeast over the next couple hours. And then we start to get into this afternoon. Some rain could begin to develop. Doesn't look super intense. But then we start to get to, say, 4, 5, 6 p.m. This is when we can get some intense thunderstorms. So, you see the circle areas off some of these storms. This indicates more intense updrafts, just storms that could produce more severe weather, damaging winds, large hail, a tornado. And we certainly got to watch for any cells that could get a little bit more discreet when they do. Sometimes they almost kind of can create their own environment. You can get a tornado even out of a 2% day. But 5 p.m., these storms look intense up and from McCook, Kearney, Broken Bow, Chris. Watch out for some storms that could form around your area. And Sioux City up to Sioux Falls, these storms could eventually move into your area. As you can tell, this is around 7 p.m. So first round of storms sort of begins to surge into eastern areas of Nebraska. And as we continue to move forward here, we get into 9 p.m., 10 p.m. You might be able to hear my dog in the background, Copper. He's hooping and hollering in there right now. But we get, say, around 10 p.m. tonight, maybe another round of storms tries to develop back here. We continue just to get rain falling across areas of central and eastern Nebraska. And then by the time we get into the overnight hours, listen, storms just continue to be widespread in nature. I would just watch out. Let's back it up here. 4 p.m. onward. You want to watch out for these storms here. These could produce very large hail. I'm very surprised there's not a higher hail threat with these, honestly. But definitely a tornado threat and damaging winds will be a threat. And then you can see some cells up here in South Dakota also. And then looking at South Dakota, all the morning rain will move on out. We get into this afternoon, and then we see some individual cells, Rapid City over the pier. Watch out for these storms. A little bit more discreet, but you are lacking tornado ingredients, if you will. But I wouldn't be surprised we get a tornado warning or two out of some of these cells in South Dakota. Heavy rain. I think once you get into the southeastern areas of South Dakota, these storms could be more intense, a little bit better ingredients. Brookings, Sioux Falls, Yankton. But, you still got intense cells down here in southern counties of South Dakota. And, look at these storms later tonight, cruising between Rapid City and Pierre. Midnight to 1 a.m. It shows a pretty intense cluster of storms moving across the central areas of South Dakota. So just be aware of that. And then we look at Iowa. Got the morning rain that will continue. So thunderstorms through about midday. And we could continue to have some lingering storms through the northern communities here in Iowa. And then we start to get to about 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Some more thunderstorms begin to develop. These will quickly hit severe limits more than likely. So just be mindful if you live in these communities here, north of Denison, Fort Dodge, Mason City. And could be a flooding threat with these too. And Another round of storms moves into the northwestern areas of the state around 9-10 p.m. These could be intense. And we just continue to get a lot of storm activity between now and the next 24 hours, pretty much from the northwestern and northern areas of Iowa. So stormy day for sure. You get in the central, southern, southeastern, eastern areas of Iowa, the storm coverage will not be near as widespread. And last two states we'll cover, Minnesota, big chunk of rain getting thrown into the southern half of the state. Heavy, heavy rain. Further south you get in the state, you can see down here the more intense these thunderstorms could potentially be. But a lot of heavy rain just rumbling through the state of Minnesota. Northern areas of the state, not as much, but it'll be a rainy, heavy rain type day. Some embedded rumbles of thunder, maybe a severe storm or two from Minneapolis down to Rochester. And then things should begin to calm down later this evening, and we could begin to get a little bit more in the way of some weather as we begin to get into this evening, into the overnight hours for the southern areas of Minnesota. Once again, some heavy rain could move into the state. And then Wisconsin, taking a look at you guys, we start to get into this afternoon, more so a heavy rain threat, the severe weather threat, not so much, but I'm sure there will be some strong to severe storms. But this is 5 p.m. Look at Eau Claire, heavy rain and storm activity moving in. And I just would watch out for the southeastern areas of Minnesota into La Crosse, Wisconsin. A line of storms could move in around 7 to 8 o'clock tonight, and we could get some strong to severe storms later on this evening, 9, 10, 11 o'clock for the southern areas of Wisconsin. Just some heavy rain up into the UP of Michigan, and then we continue to move forward. Could have another line of storms moving out of Iowa into southwestern Wisconsin later on tonight. Rainfall between now and the next, between now and 7 p.m. Friday. Pockets of heavy rain possible. I mean, you see it here. The red area, that's over 2 inches of rain. You get into the yellow areas, it's where over 4 inches of rain could fall. So just heavy rain continues. And just to scoot this a little bit further to the west here, Nebraska and South Dakota included. A good bit of rain could happen in Nebraska too. A couple inches of rain, just depending on location. So looking at the western U.S., could get some storms in southeast Wyoming today, and this eventually will move into the Dakotas and Nebraska, and some storms off the Front Range in Colorado could produce some small hail. But once you get west of all these areas, not a whole lot going on. It's pretty quiet. So temperatures today, won't zoom in like I did the last couple of days, but like I said, intense heating very quickly today across the southeast, but it'll even get very hot up to Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and point south. I mean, pretty much just west of the Mississippi, along it, and east. Very hot conditions. Not as hot up into New England today, but still very hot, down into like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Long Island, New York City, point south and southeast. So we're going to get widespread 100s once again for certain areas of the eastern U.S. The temperatures out west, nothing too crazy, could be much hotter. So nothing too crazy one way or the other. Storm Prediction Center outlook, there's a couple areas to watch. Could have some severe weather up in Montana, small section of North Dakota. Some severe weather possible tomorrow for your Thursday across areas of the Midwest, the Plains, into the Great Lakes region. And kind of the same thing that's driving today's severe weather threat across the southeast will drive tomorrow's and Friday's also. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center mentions dropping potentially a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 across areas of the southeast. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get an upgrade across the southeast. Storm Prediction Center discussion mentions it, but a very large marginal risk. So we're probably going to get widespread severe weather, at least storms across the southeast up into the mid-Atlantic for tomorrow. Now, if we look at the excessive rainfall outlook for tomorrow, flooding threat shifts a little bit further east. So if you live in these yellow areas, that's where we have a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded. And we look at the day 3 severe weather threat. Once again, a chance of strong to severe storms across areas of the southeast up into the Appalachian Mountains. So, the good news is things are going to cool off. The bad news is we're going to replace it with thunderstorms, widespread thunderstorms. So, but there is a large slight risk going from Nebraska up through the heart of the Dakotas, includes northwestern areas of Minnesota. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. And right now we just know the entire yellow area runs a 15% risk of severe weather, but also a 10% risk of that severe weather being significant. This could be damaging winds, hail. I doubt it'll be tornadoes. So, part of this slight risk actually is just a 15% risk, but we're going to probably get a lot of energy ejecting across the northern plains, and this is going to spark widespread strong and severe thunderstorms. So the risk of excessive rainfall, I would watch out for a bit of a risk of flash flooding, a higher risk up here for northern areas of Vermont and New York State. There is a slight risk in places. This is for our Friday. But, speaking on the longer range, I'm not going to get super detailed on it. I'm honestly not seeing anything that's too crazy, too wild. There's nothing in the tropics. Just run-of-the-mill type summer stuff, guys. I mean, really is. But the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook looks to cool down, looks to remain cooler across areas of the southern high plains. This is from June 30th through July 4th. Looks to be, we look to have the shot of above average temperatures remaining in place across the eastern U.S. and the western U.S. The precipitation outlook in the same time frame. Let's look at right here. Good chunk of the country. Actually, no areas of the country has a risk of right now below average precipitation, either around near normal or you have above average chances of precipitation. So got that. And if we extend this to the 8 to 14 day outlook, looks like we get a bit of break in the heat as we get a little bit deeper into July. This runs us from the 2nd through the 8th of July. So near normal temperatures for this time of the year. So if your average highs is in the upper 80s, maybe you'll get upper 80s for high temperatures in the southeast. Still hanging with the slightly above average temperatures probabilities here. So, and then we look at the precipitation outlook, and no area of the country really run the risk of being super dry. It looks like monsoon season is about to get going here in Arizona with well above average chances of precipitation. So that's all I got, guys. I'm going to create a timestamp here and we'll use this. So let's do a quick Bible devotion for you folks. Jeez, it's already almost 80 degrees. It's 7:15 in the morning here. So, man, it's going to be a hot one, guys. But let's do our Bible devotion. Hopefully I marked it here. I think I did. Yeah. So this morning we're in Galatians and we're in chapter 5 and we're doing verse 25 through 26. So to verse 25 through 26. Galatians chapter 5, verse 25 and 26. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. Okay. So I wrote down a couple things here. I said, actively pursue the Holy Spirit in all aspects of your life. When doing this, it will lead you to approach everything in life with love and encouragement and service. So going out your way to help others, just from the pure love of doing it. And then I put avoid the negative emotions, jealousy or being overly prideful, cocky, leading everything with selfish desires. So, just it kind of goes back to what we keep talking about. If you actively pursue the Holy Spirit, if you actively seek to build your relationship with Christ, and that's with reading the Bible, going to church, praying, then doing this becomes easier. Now, we all can be prideful about things. We all can be jealous about things. We all seek validation, whether you want to admit it or not, whether it's just small forms of it or bigger forms of it. And heck, everybody likes a good pat on the back sometimes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when you constantly have to do it, then that stems from something else. I like to use the term personality deficiencies. And we all got them. We all struggle with something. But, the jealousy thing, is huge. You look at people even in your own in your own family sometimes, and you want to compare your life with theirs or a friend, and you know, maybe to their face, you're sitting there and you're saying, "Oh man, awesome, happy for you," but deep down, you're not really happy for them. You almost wish in a way that you can take all the good things they got going for themselves, and you kind of get it all. But you know, that's not the way that we're called to think, obviously. One thing that, you know, and I always do this, and I think it helps make everything relatable, right? You know, for example, in the weather community, obviously there's other people that do YouTube, that talk about weather on YouTube. I could choose to be jealous. I could choose to look at somebody else that does a video and gets a video that gets over 100,000 views, you know, and I haven't had a video that had 100,000 views, and I can choose to be jealous of them. Does it, in a way, make me think, man, I'm busting my butt, I wonder why I can't get it? Yeah, it does, but it also challenges me to get better. But I'm not going to think any bad things about that person. You get what I'm saying? In fact, you know, I probably will go out my way to promote their stuff, and a lot of people are all about themselves, and I can only, and I'm kind of, I can speak on many things with this, but I'm relating this to social media type stuff, right? You know, I can choose to not promote other people's stuff because it's all about me and my desires and wants and everything like that. I want to protect my brand, or I could continue to build my brand and also promote others. And you know, a lot of people don't do that, and that goes for other things in life too. So anyways, guys, just do things out of love. Walking in the same place as the Holy Spirit. Seek it. Seek Christ in everything you do. You know, don't, obviously you put Christ first, but put Christ, God, in everything that you do, every thought you do, every movement you make, every decision you make. Put Him first, and really challenge to the core those negative thoughts that you feel. And you know, for me, one thing that I do, and I've talked to you guys about this, is when I want to complain at my job, now some people are not going to agree with this, but I talk trash to myself. I was like, what, you going to keep on whining because you gotta deal with you know, a rude customer? You know, what you going to complain because you're getting more emails for today, more phone calls? I mean, it's your job. They're paying you to do it. So I'll kind of talk some nicely, some trash to myself to kind of get myself out of the mindset of complaining, because that is a very toxic thing. So do everything out of love. Don't be jealous of others, because jealous stems to other negative things, can lead to hate, and put others before yourself. And I really think you're able to do that when you're working on yourself. And when I say when you're working on yourself, you know, I'm not meaning make yourself the only priority and don't help others while you're working on yourself. But I do believe if you're working on yourself, waking up early, reading the Bible, maybe working out, doing things that will build your confidence, not make you cocky or prideful, but build your confidence, I think it opens the window for helping out others better. So anyways, that's all I got. You know, guys, I like to ramble with these devotions. I get passionate about it. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Take the weather serious. It can get wild quick across the Southeast. We'll talk soon.